Everybody, welcome back to another edition to the Point Podcast. It's different this week. It's a Wednesday. Shamus was great to take the time tonight to join me. I had to go get some new facial hair, get a new tattoo last night, get my car serviced. So a couple things I had to get done, but we're back in full swing on a Wednesday. We're even more excited because we're getting closer to the weekend. I know nobody loves weekends more than my boy Shamus. So Shay, after Kennedy's getting her wisdom teeth out last week, how you must be looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, I have a new respect for full-time healthcare workers after taking care of her for a full weekend and slash week. But no, it's been good, and glad those are out. I guess it's better to get them out at a young age. So all our listeners out there looking to think about it, if you're on the fence, get them out now, because I guess the healing process is worse when you're older. But no, yeah, I obliged. You said Wednesday, can we bring on the show instead? And I said, you know what, we took a week off for my exam back in the day, and you were happy to oblige me then, so I'm happy to do it. And usually on Wednesdays is my bird watching club, so I had to cancel that, unfortunately. It's just terrific. But
Yeah.
no, everyone listening who's not watching, Juggy's got this goatee, and he used to work on the bottom, but the top is pretty good. The old stachio is looking pretty tight, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
But it's a new look. It's I don't know if it's a tribute to the person we're going to talk about later, Walter White, but it's a new look, and he's rocking it pretty heavily.
Yeah, I was shaving and I wanted something different because I thought it was looking a little, underneath it was a bit scraggly. And I said, I had shaved to that point, and I'm like, what if I just leave it like this? And I said, it kind of reminds me of Walter White. I said it'll get a good laugh. And then I've had it since like last Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
And
You've got some positive feedback though, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Over the weekend, I was with a number of people, and there's a few, you look like an idiot. But a lot of people say I like it. A lot of people saying it looks weird now, but over time, people just, that'll be your look.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm keeping it for now. And we'll see how it progresses. I can change a look, as overnight. I've gone from, hair down to my lower back to, bald in half a day. So
I remember that. I'll never forget the day you came in, and this is summer 2019 when we were both living in Fredericton together, and you came in one day and just bald, just off guard. I almost had a panic attack. I was like, did something happen? Like, is there something you're not telling me? Like, you pulled a Walter White here? But no, just completely bald. So you are a chameleon in a sense, where you just change up the look, just on how you're feeling.
Yeah. There's days I'm just like, I'm sick of this, and I'll change it up. So who knows? I could have I could have just the little line right here, next week or something. Who knows? But
Yeah.
we'll keep this for now, and like it's a good for the podcast with Walter White, like you said. So these two episodes 8 and 9 of season 2, episode 8 called Better Call Saul. I loved this episode in particular. I think it's really one of the more entertaining that we've talked about, that we're going to talk about so far. Episode 9 is different. It's I think it's important for the overall narrative, but it's definitely not as entertaining, I would say, as Better Call Saul. But what'd you make of these two episodes that we're going to talk about tonight?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's you're going to introduce some new characters with Better Call Saul, obviously, with Saul Goodman being the soul around that. The 9th episode, though, I find a great character building one, especially the connection between Jesse and Walt.
Right.
Spoiler: it's largely just based around them cooking and being back in the RV, we'll say. But yeah, no, I like both of them, and like you said, though, highlight of the whole season is this episode where we get to meet this fantastic loony character.
He's Bob Odenkirk's great. He is this character, especially, he'll be remembered forever. And if people didn't know, there is a spinoff of Breaking Bad, and it's called Better Call Saul. So another fantastic show. If you haven't watched it, it's we're heading into our final season, so I know I'm looking forward to that in 2022 or whenever we can film stuff again, because hopefully COVID will be over. But nevertheless, moving forward, in tonight's episode, it starts with Badger, who we know is one of the dealers for Walter and Jesse, and he's sitting on a park bench and he's listening to music, sitting there. And this skinny guy who this actor, I don't know if you remember the movie Shea Road Trip. He's
I'm just doing that right now. I'm trying to look for him, but keep going.
Yeah,
I want to get his name.
Yeah, so the skinny guy sits next to him and he wants to buy some drugs. And Badger's like, dude, like, I know you're a cop, like, beat it. And the guy's like, I'm not a cop. And he goes, like, you think I'm an idiot? Like, you're a cop. Like, I see the brown vans over there, the flower truck. Like, hey guys, like, how you doing? And kind of mocking him. And, the skinny guy kind of plays on his emotions. He goes, I'm just trying to buy some drugs and you treat me like crap. Like, I'm just leaving. And Badger says, okay, come back. Lift your shirt. So he does, and he's got no wire or anything. The skinny guy says to Badger, well, I can prove to you that I'm not a cop. And he says, well, how? Well, if you ask a police officer, if they're a police officer, they have to tell you. And for anybody, our listeners, this is not true, so don't listen to that. But Badger, as we remember, is not the smartest guy in the world. He goes, okay, are you a police officer? And the guy goes, no, I'm not a police officer. So Badger says, okay, well, it's $175 for a teenth. And he pulls out his bag, sells them the drugs, and the second that the money's distributed, the cops swarm and Badger is promptly arrested.
This guy's name is DJ Quells. He's very recognizable, but he's one of those guys you would never, ever be able to put it face to the name, or name to the face, I guess.
Yeah.
You're right, though. Just a skinny, very awkward looking guy. He doesn't look like a cop. But yeah, no, they swarm him. And the funny part about this episode and how it starts is that Badger called it from the beginning. He's like, dude, like, I smell bacon. You're a cop, clearly. Like, and he picked out the exact vans where he thought they were going to be, but in the end, he still ended up selling to him, just kind of showing you that Badger's, maybe brighter than he looks when it comes to street smarts, but at the same time, he kind of just got himself played.
Yeah, he's an emotional guy, and he kind of felt for this guy being like, you're picking on me, like, I just want to get high. Like, and the irony in all of this is the opening scene ends with Badger was sitting on a park bench with the words "Better Call Saul" on it. So it tells you where this episode's going to go, and I also really like that part of the opening scene.
Yeah, me too. No, it's a nice little prequel for what's to happen.
So we pivot to Jesse and Jane. And if you remember, at the end of the last episode, they had started holding hands, waiting for the cable to get set up, and they end up having sex on Jesse's floor because he doesn't have any furniture or a bed, so just laying on blankets. And they're kind of talking, are we cool and all this, and Jesse says, I wish we could smoke inside. And she goes, well, you can't. And he goes, well, do you want to go outside and light up? And in this scene, we learn that Jane is 18 months sober. She is a former addict. We don't know what she was addicted to yet, but we know that at some point she was an addict in her life.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, you can see right away Jesse's body language is like, well, I don't smoke that often, or I don't do it that often, because he, obviously he's trying to impress her at this point. He's not the usual stone cold. Well, I shouldn't say stone cold. He's not the usual shrug it off Jesse. He seems to have somewhat feelings for this girl, especially since she's kind of throwing him a bone by living there and stuff.
And I think, as both of us being men and dealing with women that we're interested in, if we say something that they hate, we instantly pivot into hating that. If somebody said to me, yeah, want to go watch the game? Nah, sports suck. Yeah, it sucks. Let's go do puzzles or whatever, whatever the hell she's in. We instantly have an interest in what they're interested in. So yeah, like you said, he's like, yeah, I don't smoke that much anymore. Like, I hate weed, and it's kind of funny because it's every man's response.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So she kind of leaves. I think they're on good terms, but he's a little concerned because he's, finds out that she's sober and she was a little aloof with him. So Jesse and Walt are now counting money. They have $45,000 each, and Walter, this is him. He's happy, but he goes, "Well, we're short." And Jesse goes, "Could you not just be happy for 1 second, bitch?" And he goes, "Badger's pulling an all-nighter, and he's good for it. Like, he's scared to death of me." And so he says, "Well, call him." Calls Badger, no answer. He calls Combo, and it's at this point that he learns that Badger has been arrested.
Yeah, and this is the first real time, I guess. I can't think of another time, but this is the first time that the boys kind of get snipped in the butt by the police, and not just the police, but the DEA in particular. But yeah, they're obviously concerned, but they don't maybe know the extent of what's going on right now. And I think at this point, Hank is returning to the DEA's office, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Hank has gone through his whole procedure with Tortuga, and seeing the agents get blown up, and so he's at home first, and he won't talk to Marie. As we know about Hank, he's a man's man. He doesn't like to share his emotions. So she calls Walter to go over and talk to Hank, and he's laying there. He's like, "Not now, baby." And she walks in, and he goes, "Oh, it's Walt." And he goes, "Oh, hey, buddy. Hey, how you doing?" And they share this intimate moment about how Walter has spent his whole life being afraid. He was afraid of, life, of disappointing his family, of not making enough money. And he kind of tells Hank, "Since I got cancer, I'm not afraid of anything anymore." And he says, "You should just get out of bed and kick life's ass. You weren't afraid before. Don't be afraid now." And he kind of gives him a little, kick in the ass to get better and move forward.
Yeah, it's good motivation, and we see that Hank supports Walter often through, with his cancer and even trying to help him out financially. But this is the first time that we've seen it the other way, where Walter's kind of giving that motivation back to Hank, who's obviously going through a stressful time. He tries to do his best not to show it during this scene, but he's in distress, and he's suffering clearly because of what he saw. And you could even kind of hear it in his voice. He blames himself a little bit for not being closer. He said, "Well, they broke me home because I was the one giving the bag." For those that don't know, Hank kind of, when he saw the head, he kind of pivoted towards going back to the vehicle and grabbing an evidence bag instead of staying. And that kind of in the end saved his life, because he would have died if not.
Yeah. And I mean, it's only natural to feel a little bit, you hear about 9/11 stories about people that, you were supposed to work that day, but you missed your alarm, or, you were on the subway and you were late. It's kind of just an instant reaction in life to, somebody was in a car accident that you weren't there. It's just, I think that's a general emotion, a human emotion. So the skinny detective is talking to Badger, and Badger goes, "I thought we were going to be friends. I thought we were going to hang out."
He's hurt. Yeah.
He's really upset. And he goes, "I want to help you, Badger. Just give me your supplier." And I think Badger was about to turn. It seemed like he was open to it anyway. And in walks Saul Goodman, aka Better Call Saul, played by the one and only Bob Odenkirk. And just a general background on Saul. Saul Goodman is not his real name. It is a nickname of sorts. It's his business name. His real name is Jimmy McGill, but he got the name Saul Goodman because it's if you call him, it's Saul Goodman, right? It's all good, Saul Good. So that's really where it came from. But he's quick-witted, very sharp, and to his credit, Shay, he is a very good lawyer.
Oh yeah, it's for what he charges, he does his job. But yeah, you're right. Quick-witted is I think an understatement, because he's right on him, and he's not afraid to give it to the police or the DEA. He walks in and he's confident. He's like, "You better not said a word to my client, or else I'm basically taking you out." And this guy's a little younger looking. I would say we probably look older than him,
Yeah.
and he's just giving it to him. He's like, "Oh, did they take you right out of the cradle for the academy?" And like, and you could just tell that he's got this kind of cocky arrogance that that works for him clearly, because people are like, "Oh, like Jesus, it's this guy again." And
Yeah.
basically, he just shoos the agent right out of the room, and starts pulling up the bill for old Badger.
Yeah, so he says it's funny because before he even talks about strategy, he goes, "Yeah, this is going to be a money wiring, or you can send it to me directly." Actually, making a money wire, yeah, it's easier, and I'll need that by today. So make a call, get that from Nana or whoever the hell else is paying for your shit. And he says, "But the way this looks, maybe community service." Best case, you won't even be sitting in a jail cell. We'll make a deal. And that's the strategy. If Badger can flip on Jesse and Walter, I mean, witness protection for Badger, he'll never be in jail. He's doing them a service. And if you watched a show, if you watched any movie in this type of scenario, Goodfellas comes to mind. You don't serve jail time. You get protection. You go with your family, and I think Badger is sitting in a similar position here.
Yes, because even though like you said, he's a little scared of Jesse. At the same time, I think respects him in the fact that they were chums at one point. But obviously, when it comes to his own ass, he's got to look after himself. He's just kind of scared for his well-being, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you said, Saul leaves the room and Hank's there, and he kind of makes fun of him. He says, "Your commercials suck shit." He says, he's asked Hank if his mom still worked at the whorehouse because he saw her there last night. And like he's not afraid of anybody. He's clearly he's a cavalier type guy, and he's a criminal lawyer. That's what he does. So at this point, Jesse and Walter go to meet Saul, and they're kind of sitting in the parking lot, and they're like, "Well, who's gonna go in?" And Walter's like, "Well, I'm not going in. Like, I got a family and stuff. They don't need to see me in there." And Jesse looks at him. "Well, I don't need to be seen in there either, bitch. Like, what am I?" and they flip a coin, and who ends up going in, Shay?
Our good friend Walt.
Yeah. Well,
so Walt, yeah, he pulls a short straw before they get there, though, or I guess before they flip. It's kind of this funny scene where Walter's like, "Really? Like, this is who he called?"
right.
But Jesse gives him kind of props. He's like, this guy got Emilio, who was, if we remember right away from the first season, was Jesse's original partner in crime. He's like, "This guy got Emilio off twice. Like, he's good. Like, he's really good." So we kind of learned that Saul's got a reputation of being a pretty shady but also very good lawyer.
Exactly. He says, "Yeah, Emilio was dead to rights, and he got him out nothing. Just bail." And so, like you said, Walter goes in. He throws a hat, sunglasses on, and he pretends to be Badger's uncle. And Mr. Mayhew. So he goes and meets Saul, and they go, "Mr. Mayhew, thank you for the check. It's gonna be great. Like, Badger." Or Brandon, whoever you want to call him, he's working with the DEA. He's gonna tell him the supplier, and he won't even have to serve jail time. He's gonna be out, and everything's gonna be good. And of course, this is terrible news for Walter to hear.
Yeah, as the person who he'll be flipping on, it's good information to have, but obviously it's not the information he wants to hear. So Walter gets a little panicked. He's like, "Is there any way around this? Is there any way we can, do it without flipping on anybody? Because these people are bad." AKA talking to himself, kind of a little fist pump to himself. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's like, there's got to be some way around this. And Saul goes, "No, this is the best option. Like, this is going to be great. Your nephew's going to be out, no problem at all." And Saul goes to turn the door, and Walter goes, $10,000, and it catches Saul's attention.
Yeah, he shuts the door. And you think when the scene ends, because it cuts to black, that it's going to be a done deal. But Walt gets back to the car, and he says, he was he said, "What the hell are you doing?" He was ashamed. He was offended that he thought that he would take a bribe for his client. And, he was morally outraged that, Mr. Mayhew offered to, offer him money to do this. And he essentially kicked him out of his office.
Yeah, Jesse was appalled. He says, like, that guy wouldn't take a bribe. It's just funny seeing, because like obviously his setup and the way he looks and talks, like he's not a big shot lawyer, but obviously he's got some kind of morals if he wouldn't take a bribe from someone who's family member to his case, I guess, or to his client's case.
Yeah. And just for reference, when Walt was in there, he's got this cough. If you're watching the show with us, he coughs a lot, and he was coughing in there. And that's a little precursor for the next scene. So as far as they know, Badger's going to flip the next day, and that's Jesse and Walter are going to be screwed. They're done. Their operation's over. So, desperate times call for desperate measures. And when Saul's closing his office, he's by himself. His receptionist Francesca is gone for the day. They kidnap him, put him in the RV, and drive him out to the middle of the desert.
Yeah, it's this really cool scene, because it's obviously dark, it's pitch black, but there's also this red. I don't know if it's like the sun or something, but the way, I don't know, it just looks really, really interesting. I guess it's like the red lighting over it, and they have their stupid ski masks on. They used to rob the methamphetamine.
Yeah.
And they're there, and they're just basically like, we're gonna kill you. Right away, Saul's thinking that this is an entirely different scenario, because he goes right. He's like, oh, please, like, you could tell he starts speaking Spanish, so he clearly thinks that he's been kidnapped by Mexican gangsters.
Yeah, he starts saying Spanish words. Jesse's like, "Shut up, bitch! Shut up! This is about Brandon Mayhew. Yeah, he's not gonna say shit tomorrow, or we'll kill you. Basically, like this is what's gonna happen. You didn't take the bribe earlier. This is done." And Saul's basically, he sees the grave dug out for him, so he goes, "Yeah, no problem." Like, yeah, he won't say a word, but then Walt starts coughing. And Saul looks back and says, "Mr. Mayhew, is that you?" And he goes, "I know it's you." And, the cat's kind of out of the bag there. And he goes, "Take your mask off, cough, like get it out, whatever." So Walt takes his mask off. He's coughing. And, Saul, he transitions very quickly. He's not afraid anymore. He goes, "You know what? I got a better idea. Why don't each of you put $1 in my pocket?" And that means that, I'm representing you. I'm your lawyer now. Once you paid me, I'm your lawyer, a client, lawyer privilege. That's it'll be set. I'll never say anything. And to their credit, they both do. He tells Jesse, "Hey, ski bum, take your stupid hat off." And they each give him $1. And they make a deal with Mr. Goodman.
Yeah, who would have thought that transaction would have spiraled into so much more? But you're right, though. It's crazy to think like how he went from kind of like defending himself, trying not to get killed, right back to his like witty lawyer ways, where he's kind of on the ball, thinking really quickly, like, how can I get myself out of this situation and save my own ass, but at the same time maybe make $1 or $2, because these guys clearly they have something to hide, which I think that's what I was thinking when I was watching this. Well, if these guys want Badger not to flip, like clearly they know something that I don't, that could make me profitable.
Right. So we don't see it right away, but we go back to his office and they say, "Okay, someone's going to jail. Somebody's going to have to go to jail. Somebody's going to have to be Heisenberg. We have to give the DA somebody." And Saul says, "Well, it's just a matter of who." And he says, "Well, I got a guy that I represent, and he goes to jail for people. That's his job. He's figured out a way to make money while going to jail for people. He doesn't like the outside world. He does better in jail, but he gets a good sizable payment for going to jail, for taking the rap basically for people." Mm-hmm. And so, and this man's description, he's similar to Walter. He's bald. He's around the same age, thin enough. And it was a good enough description that Badger could give the DEA that it would be, plausible, because they do have sketches of Heisenberg.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect setup. Just the price is probably not what they wanted, because at this time, like you said, they had $45,000 each at this point, 90,000, and this guy, I guess this deal, not even this guy, is going to cost them $80,000 just off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. It's this guy's pricey, but it's better than going to jail for life and dealing with the pitfalls of that. So
do you think there's people like this, Juggy, like in real life? I know, like, a lot of, like, this show is maybe based off things that actually happened before, probably, but like this particular thing, do you think that there's some of these people that take the fall and take the cash, I guess?
I think there's something there, because I think, people just, if you've been a criminal for 20 plus, like if you're getting out of the pen after 20 years, you're not going to know what life is. I mean, you think of the really sad scene in Shawshank Redemption when, the name's not coming to me right now, but when he goes back and he tries to get the job bagging groceries and he ends up, hanging himself. Hopefully that's not a spoiler alert, but it's just, the movie's been out for 50 years. But I think I could see it, because what if you're giving money to your family and you're going to, and you just can't do it. You can't live the outside life. I think it's plausible. How about you?
No, I think it could be based on real thing. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, if he is not the real, I guess, criminal in the situation, then that means that there's probably a ton of real criminals still out there that didn't take the fall for crimes that they committed, and
right.
they kind of just took the easy way out and paid someone else to serve the time, essentially, which, as a business move, I guess that's kind of a smart thing, but it's also really sketchy. But yeah,
it's certainly weird. And so they decide to pay up, and so Saul sets up a meet, and Badger, he talks to Hank and to Gomi, and he gives them the information. He says, this is the guy. And they set up a meet where he's going to give the money to the new Heisenberg. And funny enough, his name is Jimmy. And so it happens where they're just meeting basically in a public, I'd say a cul-de-sac, Shay. It's really like it's a suburban neighborhood for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Badger is walking up, and he sits on this park bench, and it's the wrong park bench because he's sitting next to this guy, and he's like, so we're going to do this or what? And at this time, the DEA is set up with Hank is there with Gomez and the skinny cop with surveillance. They're on it. And in the background behind Hank is old Walter and Jesse in the Chevy Aztec. And they're like, oh, Badger, that idiot, he's at the wrong bench. And the Jimmy, the fake Heisenberg, walks up, and he goes, oh, he doesn't see him. So Walter says, Jesse, get out of the car. And he goes, why? He goes, just go. I'm gonna give you time to go alert him to get to that bench, and nobody will notice. And how does he go about doing this, Shay?
This is a quick thinking and ballsy thinking by our good friend Walt. He drives right up into the blocks the view of the skinny cop and Hank and Gomi, and they can't see anything. And he does a perfect job of acting like he just seen Hank. He's like, oh, I thought that was you. Like, how's it going? How have you been since you've been back? And Hank's like, Walt, like, you got to move. Like, you're in the shot. You got to move. But Walt does a great job of stalling, and Jesse walks right by, and he's basically like, wrong bench. And Badger knows right away that he looks and he sees the other bug guy, and he stands up and goes.
Yeah, Hank's like, well, you gotta go. Like, I'll talk to you later. He goes, oh, is this DAA? Like, work? Like, right now? And he goes, yeah, get the hell out of here. He goes, oh, okay. Should I go backwards or forwards? And he just go, okay, I'm sorry. Like, he does a perfect, I thought of 21 Jump Street, Shay. Remember when he's out with Dave Franco at the mall, and that old woman comes up to him.
Oh yes, they're shoe shopping.
Schmitty, and he like his covers, like she's blowing his cover, but he does, he throws her to the ground. It's he goes through that whole scene. I thought that was kind of similar.
Yeah, this lady tried to touch my penis.
Yeah.
He walks away.
Try to do what? Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. So like you said, he gets out of the line of sight. Jesse's walking far enough away that he's not seen as a potential mole or a threat. And the cops swarm in on the fake Heisenberg. And, we pivot to the skinny cop getting a call from, likely his superior, getting congratulated on the big success, the big bust. But Hank's in the shot, and we don't get this directly, Shay, but I don't think he buys this whatsoever.
Not even a little bit. No. He gives a look like this, like, I feel like you can almost sense that Hank feels it went too well.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, you know what, this Heisenberg guy seems a lot smarter to do this in like broad daylight. Mm-hmm. This isn't our guy. You're right. He doesn't come out and say it, but you can definitely tell by the way he looks, he's thinking that.
Yeah. Hank got this new assignment, but we know his true passion is the blue meth. He wants to catch Heisenberg. I think that's his biggest thing in life, is to catch this guy. And he knows it's not this guy who's been in jail 18 times, but it's a good enough sell. Badger did his thing. He's going to get out with little to no problems for him, and Jesse and Walt escape, prison for life. So it was a win for them, and Hank ultimately, gets a minor win, but all the while knowing that it's, bullshit.
Yeah. Great little cameo by DJ Quell too. That name just cracks me up, for that face and that guy. Just, man, what a name.
Yeah, old Kyle from Road Trip. Yeah, that's right. But you're right. He makes some small appearances in a lot of different shows.
Even if it's for an episode like this one, like he'll just rise up, and that's it. He'll just do that little one episode and he's done.
And it's pretty cool. Some guys you see for one episode, like you got to be in Breaking Bad. A small part or not, like you were in the show. See, that's something you can put on your IMDb page for the rest of your life, and that's a pretty cool feat.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So that's all done. But at the end of the episode, it's interesting. Walt's back at the high school grading tests. He gives a kid a 40. Not even close. He writes on the paper.
So discouraging as a teacher, eh?
Grade 10 math. But I sucked ass. But he not even close. Like, we clearly see Walter is not the nicest teacher, just hammering kids. And who knocks on his classroom door but old Saul Goodman, and tells him, my PI found you in about 2 hours, so you're not, you actually are a high school chemistry teacher.
Yeah.
Walt's so clearly taken aback that Saul had the balls to show up at his school.
Yeah, no, he is in every right. I mean, Walter, but he gets the ball rolling. I think he knows, like, that it's easier to find after this. It's way easier to find him than he thinks. And Saul's basically like, where do you hide your money? Do you put it, is it under your bed? Is it in your safe? Is it in the walls? Mm-hmm. Like what? Like, and Walter's like, what are you doing? Like, are you antagonizing me? What's going on here? And Saul's like, do you want to lose money every time something happens, like what happened today, and lose $80,000? No. You know why? And then he's just basically like, you better call Saul.
Yeah, he kind of says, I want to be a silent partner in this business, and maybe I can even introduce you to some heavy hitters in the industry, and we can make some real money together. And he kind of leaves him with that, and Walt is sitting there kind of pondering his offer when the episode ends. Yeah,
so I mean, it leaves it for obviously a cliffhanger for just that one deal, but I mean, you could just see the doors open, right? Like, Saul, he's a lawyer for sketchy people, and he knows a lot of sketchy people, so who knows where those doors lead. So it's going to be interesting, and we as two people who have watched the show before, we know that his character goes way more into depth And like you said, if you're watching Breaking Bad or you've watched it already and you haven't watched Better Call Saul, it's right up the same alley. Like you give it a watch, or give it a try for a first season.
Mm.
And if you, especially for you, like someone who loves the character, I think it's got to be for you. Is it like probably must be top 3 characters from the show, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love him. As you know, I love Mike, who we'll get introduced to. Probably my 3 favorite shades, so weird, are not the
The
main
two.
one.
Yeah.
I love Mike. I love him, and I also love Gus. And we'll obviously get introduced to Gus at the end of the season. But yeah, it's funny because all 3 of those guys are in Better Call Saul, so that's maybe why I love the spinoff so much. And
Yeah, fair.
Rotten Tomatoes, for what it's worth, does that. It's got like a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes, so they like it too. I could have probably guessed that we had a pretty fun game back in the day. Me and Shay, for the listeners, he would tell me a movie and I guessed the rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That wasn't bad. That's pretty good.
You got pretty close, lot, like within 5% probably most of the time, which is pretty good.
Yeah, except for Mudbound. I don't know how that got like a 98, but that
it's battling race, so I mean it's bad. It's bad.
It's battling, not having any construct or plot line or compelling characters, but who doesn't love those type of movies? She's a male. But we'll pivot into episode 9 called 4 Days Out, and it starts with the whole family is at the oncology lab, and that includes Marie and Hank. And they're sitting there, and Walter's like, "You guys can go home. Like, we're waiting for lab results. They're only coming next week." But you mentioned in the early episode how Hank is always there for him. He even says, "We're not going anywhere, buddy. Like, we're family. Like, we're gonna deal with this together." And Marie's like, "Why don't you just come to the hospital and get this done? Like, doctors, they think they're so smart. They're assholes. Like, we can get this done so quickly." But they're kind of brushing Marie aside because she thinks she's right all the time too. Yeah. But he goes under, gets his X-ray, and he looks at the picture and he sees a big, I don't know if you noticed this, but I think it looks like his lung, and it looks really enlarged and it looks really red. And I think at this time he's thinking he's not going to be getting very good news about his cancer diagnosis and how his tumor is progressing.
Yeah, as 2 people who have no idea how to read an X-ray, it looked bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, it could have been. It might not even been something made like serious, but obviously just the way it looks, you got the viewer thinking, you know what, like Walter's in pretty bad condition after his first round of chemo.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't have all the time that he thinks. And I think Walter kind of has the same mindset.
Yeah. And we see him, throw up numerous times, and, the cough is throughout episode. So it's kind of leading us in a direction that maybe he doesn't have that much time left, with us. It could be, his death could be imminent here. Mm-hmm. So Walt meets with Saul, and Saul's like, "So what are we talking here, money?" He goes, "Well, I have $16,000 to launder." And he goes, "Wow, $16,000. And he goes, "So after my fee and this guy's fee, you're gonna have just under $10,000 to leave your family, and that should leave them like a nice Toyota Camry, if they really need it." And he basically mocks him to his face, and he goes like, "We need to start making some real money here. Like, this is a joke. 16,000, like, this is nothing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and then he's basically both come to the conclusion like it's time to start cooking. Like, you've seen it for a while. It's Jesse had his dealers dealing for quite a while, and obviously they could make chump change, but that doesn't mean much, especially when you've got to pay someone $80,000 just to take a rap for a charge. So they know that they've got to cook, and they've got to cook a lot. And this is when Walter and Skylar are in bed, and they don't get the news until I think it's like Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And it's the beginning of the weekend, and Walter's like, no, sorry, Skylar goes, we should do something this weekend. Get our minds off of the results, get away. And Walter says, actually, I'm thinking about going to see my mom. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, and he says, I think I never called her. She doesn't know. And he clearly does not have a good relationship with his mother. Skylar does not like his mother. She goes, "Oh God, you're gonna go see her right now."
Mm-hmm.
He goes like, "I feel like I should," and I probably won't get a word in edgewise because she'll just be complaining and bitching the whole time about her nurses. And she lives out of town, so it's a good alibi for him to get out of town.
Mm-hmm.
And Skylar's none the wiser because she goes, "You know what? That's probably a good decision. Like, you should go tell your mother." It's not like he's saying, "No, let's just hang around the house," and then he's not there for 4 days. So it's a good lie, and it's a believable one for Walter.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's kind of, and he's kind of like, well, I'm gonna make sure the inheritance is we're gonna get our money right, especially if I'm not here. And they kind of have differences. Walter's like, I'm expecting. He's basically indirectly saying, I think it's gonna be bad news when it comes.
Yeah.
And Skylar's like, we got to think positive. We got to think positive about this. And Skylar goes, I for one think this is going to be good news, and I think things are going to look up from here.
Yeah, and he goes, "Oh, that's great," but we see Walt the whole episode. He's got a completely negative mindset, and he goes, especially with cancer, your health can change like this. Like, you can be a Friday, you could be great. Monday, you could be dead. Like, it seriously happens that quickly. So he goes, "I need to cook now while I still have some energy, while I still can physically do this."
Yeah.
So Jesse's with Jane. They've been having, more sex, and he did buy a mattress. So that was nice. So they got a mattress now, and she wants to go to this museum with him to look at paintings and just, do kind of a couple thing. And he's like, "No, I can't cook. Like, I gotta do this." And Walter, he's a good liar. He goes, "Well, the methylamine's going bad. We need to cook now." And he goes, "You need to get all this shit." Like, and he writes down all the stuff he needs on a pizza box. But, first of all, Jesse's not smart enough to know that methylamine does not go bad. But also, Walter is willing to lie to his partner to get what he wants, which is, money for his family, even after he's dead.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. It's yeah, you said he's a good liar. I think he's an excellent liar, even at this point in the show where he hasn't even done his full extent of the lies, and just leaves a long trail full for everyone to follow.
Yeah. So Jesse has to basically tell Jane, like, "We can't do it this weekend. I got to go work." So this is funny. Skylar drops Walter at the airport, and she goes, "Good luck with your mother. Like, have a good time, whatever." And so he walks in the airport. She drives away. He walks out with his bag. And what pulls into the airport pickup zone is the RV. And Walter's face when he sees the RV pulling up is just priceless, because he's looking at the mirror like, "What the hell is that thing doing here?" And he has that same reaction for Jesse when he enters the motorhome.
Yeah, for anyone who's lives under a rock, airport is heavily secured, especially after old 9/11.
Yeah.
And to bring something like that into there is probably not a great idea, especially where you have highly dangerous chemicals that could probably go off at any time. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's just like, "What are you thinking?" And well, Jesse's just like, "What, you told me to just save time, so I just brought it here." And Walter's just like, "Just drive."
Yeah, just go. Let's get the hell out of here. So they take the RV and they drive into the desert, preparing for a 4-day long weekend cook trip. Basically, just a work trip where all they do is cook. And it's kind of this funny scene where Walter looks at the stuff Jesse brings for food. He brings like 3 bags of Funyuns and a couple different things of cereal and all this unhealthy shit. And Walter's like, how are you still living? And he's also got a 10-gallon thing of water for them. And as they're about to start cooking, Jesse throws the keys to the RV on the lab, on the workstation. And that's not good enough for Walter. He says, no, that's our workstation. I'm not putting them there. So what does Jesse do instead?
Puts them in the ignition, um, and that's what we'll leave it.
Yeah, he puts in the we'll get to what happens, but he puts him in the ignition for a couple days. Yeah, well, yikes. So we go through this montage of them cooking, and we see them each taking turns sleeping, but they're both, to their credit, Jesse has really turned his work ethic around since his times with Badger and how he worked. He knows how to do it Walter's way, but he also likes perfection himself. And he's becoming a very good cook himself. He can cook by himself. And at the end of the montage of them eating some Funyuns along the way and, doing pissing outside together, which was kind of a cool scene. They counted up. They have cooked 42 pounds of meth. And that equals $672,000 each if they sell it all. And they basically have a celebration because they were making chump change, 16 grand each. Over $600,000 in this a couple of days of cooking is what this could turn into for the both of them.
Yeah, we see this really great scene where Jesse's fired up. He's like just fist pump in the air, and he's like, "Come on, Mr. White, come on, get it, hands up." And Walter like hesitates, and he's like, "Yeah!" They both yell at a big scream, and I think they're both bonding the fact that they're going to be wealthy men, obviously, if they can pull this off. And they're like, Walter's like, this is great. Like, Jesse's ready to call it a day, basically. And Walter's like, no, we got plenty of methylamine left. Like we're gonna keep on going for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And Jesse's like, no, come on, Mr. White. Like we cooked for 2 days straight. Let's take the night off. Let's go to a hotel. Go to a Denny's, get some food, rest up, and then we'll head her back for the rest of the weekend when we get here.
Yeah, and to Walter's credit, he buys in. Yeah. He goes, yeah, let's go. Like separate rooms, let's do it. And as they're about to go, Jesse's got the keys to the ignition, and the RV won't turn over. And he goes, well, what the hell's going on? And Walter instantly goes, Jesse, when I told you to take the keys off the workstation, where did you put them? And he goes, in the ignition. And Walter just drops his head and he goes, you couldn't have just put them there, eh? You had to put them in the ignition. And he goes, well, the bell didn't go off, Mr. White. It didn't go off, so it doesn't mean that the lights are on. And at this point, they lose some of their power for the generator, and it's chaos for the two guys because they're in the middle of the desert in the heat with no way out.
Yeah. Originally things look like, they're like, okay, well, worst case, they're going to gas up the generator with the gas from the RV.
Yeah.
And then they'll be able to boost it. So I've never had to do this, and I pity whoever has, but sucking up the gas from a tube in order to get it flowing is what happened. And then Jesse kind of it's instructed to get it on or in the generator, sorry, but instead he kind of sprays it all over the top for a little while before he actually sticks it in there. And what happens after this, Juggy?
Yeah, so the gas goes on top of the generator, and it ignites on fire. And so Walter runs inside the RV to grab a fire extinguisher. But what does Jesse see closest is the barrel of water that they brought. He dumps the remaining water that they have on top of the fire. Walter runs out and he goes, you idiot, what are you doing? And Jesse goes, bitch, it's a fire, you put it out with water. Like, it's just common sense. And then Walter says, well, what are we going to drink now? And so now there's no generator. They got no gas. They can't get the RV to start. And they have no water in the middle of the desert. They are literally up shit creek.
Yeah. I think, and also I'm maybe not great with these things, but I think if they would have used the fire extinguisher, I think maybe the generator would have been salvageable, right, Juggy? Instead of, if you put it with water, I feel like that just kind of fries everything going on in it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, the fire extinguisher, they could have put more gas in it and tried to do it again, but that didn't happen. So that doesn't work. So Jesse goes, okay, I don't got a signal on my phone. You do. Okay, we need to make a call. I know your wife's tracking it and all that shit, but we're stuck out here. Like, we're going to die. So he calls Skinny P and he gives him some directions. You got to go to the casino and follow this big white sign and go down the dirt road for another 15 miles and you'll find us. Like, come get us. So all is well. They think, Skinny P is going to come to the rescue. And, we pivot to nighttime. And I did look this up. Deserts can get up to 140, degrees Fahrenheit at certain times. Like, that's how hot it can get. It can get to below freezing in the desert quite quickly, even to like minus 20, minus 25 degrees, depending. So we see them, they're covered head to toe in blankets and sleeping bags, and Walter's got this funny like little ski cap on, and they're sitting there freezing. And so Jesse decides to call Skinny again. He goes, okay, he's on his way. Yeah. Oh, you just passed the river? And Walter goes, what river? And he goes, no, Skinny, where are you? There's no river. And before we can talk to him, Walter's phone dies. And Walter just sinks into a sleeping bag, and they're both pretty demoralized at this point.
Yeah, things just, they throughout this whole stay, we'll call it, just get worse and worse and worse before, lights go off. But, we even got a far away. We even have a lot more troubles before that, we'll say.
Yeah. And so the next morning, they lose their lantern also during this point. So they're completely in the dark. The next morning, Walter says, we can try to triple charge the generator by cranking it. So, he starts cranking the generator, but he starts coughing, and that's a constant theme throughout this episode. And Jesse says he'll take over. And we just see, forever they're taking turns crank. I wrote down in my notes, Shay, it's kind of like the old school ice cream maker, like old school ice cream machine. Like you have to pull, like, I don't know if you ever use one, but they're kind of a bitch to use. It's a lot of work. And, they're just cranking this thing, and Walter's coughing. And so at one point he's coughing, and Jesse goes, methylamine doesn't go bad, does it? And he goes, we're out here because you're sick, because you're worried you're going to die more than, the methylamine's going bad. And Jesse did figure it out after a while, because Walter is coughing the entire time. His health is really, really poor the whole entire time that they're in the desert.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, we know this because chemotherapy plus the cancer. Obviously, he's got cancer in the lungs. This is an Oscar-winning performance on the fact that he does a great job of becoming a sick person, doesn't he, Juggy? Like, unbelievable through this episode and the last one. His coughs and the way he interacts around, like, he's hunched over the toilet. He's throwing up. He does a great job of pretending to be someone that's very, very ill. And I think that's with 100% credit to how great of an actor Bryan Cranston is.
Completely agree. His coughs sound like legitimate. They sound like they hurt. It sounds like when you have that cough and it's dry and you've had been coughing for 3-4 days. That's what it sounds like. And so he's going through this, and so they crank forever, and eventually Walter's like, let's go try it. So they hop in the RV and they start the engine. It turns for a second, but then it turns over and they can't get it to start. And at this point, Walter starts coughing like before. He runs out of the RV. Jesse's kind of like, what's going on? And when he gets outside, he sees Walter's a little bit off in the distance. He's farther away from the RV this time. And when Jesse gets to him, his hand is covered in blood from coughing it up.
Yeah, this is it's not a good look, and it's the first time I think that Walter has actually gone coughing up so much that he is starting to bleed from it. Which is another tell sign that his health is just deteriorating faster than we think, and that more leading us to believe that the news that he's going to receive, if he ever gets there, obviously, it's just going to be bad news.
Right, and he's really depressed at this time. He goes, I'm going to leave my family nothing. I didn't accomplish anything. Like, this is just a waste. And Jesse just says, I'm sick of your crybaby bullshit. Let's go. Like, you're a scientist. You're smart. Think of something scientifically that can help us get us out of this. And Walter, it kind of clicks. He goes, wait, do you have any change? He goes, yeah, I got a shit ton of change. He goes, okay, bring me anything, any change you can get that's galvanized. Bring me anything from the tires. Bring it to me. And Jesse goes, yeah, mister, what are we going to do? And he goes, we're going to build a battery, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's funny because Jesse's naming off these things. He's like, we can build like this robot or like this dune buggy to get across the desert or a battery. And then Walter's like, we're going to do what you said. And Jesse pauses and he goes, we're going to build a robot. and yes, yeah, but you're right. No, this is it. This is the motivation that Walter needed was, Jesse just kind of screwing on for a little bit and, just kind of getting angry at the fact that Walter was giving up.
Yeah, and so he brings him a whole bunch of change stuff from the tires, and he uses a sponge, this kind of spongy pad as the centerpiece of the battery. And he says, what are we going to use? He's asking Jesse, what are we going to use as our kind of our friction to start the battery? And he's holding it up in front of him, and he goes, the wire. Goes, no, carbon. And he goes, oh, yeah, carbon. Yeah, I get it. And I don't really understand the whole process of how they did this, but it's pretty crazy.
Me neither.
I can't really even describe it, but it's pretty cool. So they get the battery, they put it onto the RV, and finally, after days of trying things, they use the sponge, copper, carbon, and basically a whole bunch of galvanized coins and things. They get the RV to start finally, and they get to escape the desert, still living.
Yeah, and it's not like, if you can remember from the first season, Juggy, it's not like when they were trying to turn it over then and they had a big celebration. They're like, yeah, like, yes, we got it going. It was more like such a relief on both of them. They're both just kind of like exhausted, tired, and they were like, let's just get the hell out of here. But yeah, them in that RV, I mean, that could be a whole podcast on itself because clearly it's causing more pain than I think success, we'll say.
Yeah, investing in a better workplace likely be a smart thing to do in the future. But this RV is putting them through hell at times, but it gets them from point A to point B most of the time. So we pivot back to Jesse is in his car dropping Walter off at the airport, and they have this really intimate conversation where Walter looks at Jesse and he goes, if something happens, can I trust you that, you'll, and Jesse kind of cuts him off. He goes, no, Mr. White, of course, whatever happens, I promise you, your family will get every penny that they're owed. And this was really, Walter needed this assurance because at this point, I don't think he thinks he has that much time left, especially not enough time to sell, 42 pounds of crystal meth. And he needed to know that he could trust Jesse enough to give that money to Skylar and his family.
Yeah, 100%. And, like I said at the beginning of this pod, like it's just these building blocks. We see the frustration come out of Walt and Jesse towards each other. We see the success of them making the meth after the 2 days and knowing that they're going to be wealthy men. And, this final scene where, it's all development, I think, to both of their relationships. And yeah, it's something that Walter needed, knowing that he could be walking into some very, very bad news knowing that his family will be, they'll be compensated for basically his pain and suffering.
Right. And so he kind of tells Jesse, kind of says, we'll be in touch. And he kind of said it, I think, kind of thinking Walter may be dead. And this might be their last interaction. He says it kind of, we'll be in touch kind of thing. And so they depart the airport, and we see that we go back to we pivot to the doctor's office, and they're all sitting in the doctor's room, and he goes, so you guys ready to kind of hear the news? And the doctor first starts by saying, Walter, you're in remission. And he says, everybody's excited, but goes, pump the brakes. Remission's kind of a term that's misunderstood. That does not mean that you're cancer free or, you're good health. It doesn't really mean anything. In this case, it depends more on if the size of the tumor in your lung is decreasing or increasing after treatment. And Walter's like, yeah. So, yeah, what's my tumor? He says it's shrunk by 80%.
And they're pumped.
Yeah.
I think they're shocked almost.
Yeah, I think so too. Even Hank goes, you pull us back. You yank us away and you pull us back in, you son of a bitch. Like he's just, he's fired up and everybody's excited. Walter's crying. We'll get to the tears and what I actually think of those tears in a second, but he really can't believe it. He goes, what? Like he goes, but I was coughing yesterday. Like I coughed up blood. And he goes, yeah, Walt, you can't keep that from us anymore. That's definitely some tissue damage. We're going to deal with that today. But, that cough, we can make it go away basically. But all in all, it's very, very positive news for the White family. Walter is getting better, more and more as the days go by.
Yeah, exactly. He even shows the original scan that we see at the beginning of the episode and says, this stuff going on here, this isn't a bad thing. It's just, it's just tissue building up in your lungs. Mm-hmm. And he's basically like, this is what's causing you to cough so much, is because, it's just built up from the chemotherapy that you've served. So really, it's looking good. And I mean, it's obviously great news, but Walter he's got a different reaction when he's alone than when he's surrounded by loved ones.
Yeah, he goes into the bathroom, kind of washes his face with water, kind of, the typical thing that we've all done where you just kind of look in the mirror and think, what the hell? And when he looks himself in the mirror, he starts punching the machine that gives you paper towel, and he hammers it probably 5 or 6 times, and he leaves hard, leaves a good sized dent in it. And to me, Shay, I think he was prepared to die. I think he was ready. He's going to get the money for his family. He was tired of being sick, and he's been lying to his family a ton. That would be over. I think Walter was ready, accepted death, and he's a little angry that he's going to have to, live a little longer in his current state.
Yeah. And I would say most people in the world would probably have a different reaction, but yeah. You're right. Well, maybe Walter's sick and tired of seeing the person he's become. I took it as, he saw himself in the reflection of the dispenser, mm-hmm. and, he didn't like who he was becoming. Right. So he kind of took his frustrations out on that. He thought, well, if I'm going to die, well, at least I don't have to put up with this anymore. Like I'm done with it. My family will get paid and I'll move on. But right. You're right. Yeah. Like you're right. When he gets the news, he doesn't look all that happy. I think he's putting on a face for his family. He's hugging them, but he's not entirely happy with the results, which I don't know whether it's because he's wrong or he thought he was wrong and thought it was going to be bad, or because, he's going to have to live a little longer and probably, I guess, suffer. Maybe I'm not sure why he's so upset.
Yeah. We don't really know yet, but he's very upset. Like he's not happy, and he hammers that, and that's how the episode ends, just with him punching that thing, and he leaves the bathroom. But it's a weird reaction, but we know Walter's a weird dude, and it's no different here in this scene where he just kind of goes off. But yeah, like you said, this is a really good character development episode for both Jesse and Walter. some really good one-on-one interactions between the two of them. And, seeing that their bond, that their trust, their partnership is real, for sure, especially with what, Jesse telling him, your family will get their money, no matter what happens here. But, just Walter's going to be okay. So that's not a big issue going forward. But as we look ahead, we got 4 episodes left in season 2. And these last 4 are pretty damn good. If I remember correctly, these are some good ones upcoming.
Yeah, I'd have to jog my memory. I don't go ahead and look and read. I like to just take every episode on as it comes. Obviously you could tell, like with the episode Better Call Saul, like I knew what was going to happen. I didn't remembered exactly which episode, but I just like going into every episode kind of blind. And, obviously when things start to unravel at the beginning of the episode, I can kind of tell which episode it's going to be, but I just like going into that way. Don't you find though, Juggy, it's so nice, like how you see some shows, like take The Sopranos for example, great show, all timer, but sometimes things just kind of get meshed in together a little bit. Like one minute they're at Sylv's strip club and they're talking business, doing all that. Well, there's that, and then right from that it'll pivot to maybe something AJ or Camilla are doing, right? Something like that. Where this episode, these episodes kind of focus and dial in on certain things, like they cook for an entire episode. Well, it's not maybe the most exciting, but in a couple more episodes or the next episode, something big's going to happen, because that's just how it goes.
Right. I agree with you. And I think of a show like The 100. Have you seen that show?
I've seen most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I see most of it. I find a lot of time there's too much going on. Like you're like, what's going on? Like there's new people, and then there's like the people on the hill that aren't sick anymore. And there's too many storylines to keep your Game of Thrones is kind of like that too.
Yeah, it's very much so. This one's simple. It's like, this episode is there's less characters, and things are just dialed in more. Like you could have an entire episode about like a few episodes with Jesse and the Crackheads. Like that was an entire episode, right? And it was a great episode because you just got to see these interactions, and you're not thinking about anything else because you're there with Jesse the entire time.
Yeah, and we'll see a great example of that with the Fly episode. I think that's a great episode. I think it's one of the best. It's such a great. I looked at the top 10 Breaking Bad. That's always in the top 10 with people's list, and they hunt a fly. We'll get to that, but it's a whole episode of them hunting a fly. But it's brilliant. Like you said, it doesn't need to be more complicated. If you have great writing, if you have compelling characters, and the storyline's good, it doesn't have to be more complicated. Adding more and more, I think, it shows kind of showing their lack of creativity and lack of interesting characters, Bran, and certain shows.
Bran the Almighty, just the God. He's the main character, right?
Reading that book, oh my God, it was 40 pages of Bran, and like those chapters, those were hard to get through. But yeah, I'm never reading those books again, I'll tell you that. But no, some good episodes tonight. We'll be back next Tuesday, back at our original date. What do you got on the go the rest of the week, Shane?
A lot of great sports going on right now. You got some conference finals on both sides. I've been really, really invested in this Milwaukee and Brooklyn series. Last night was, that's a game. Anytime KD throws down 50 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists, it's worth a watch. But no, I've been invested into that little baseball now that there's less hockey and basketball to watch, and just catching up on shows. And me, I like to get out to the old golf course a couple times a week, and get my exercise and a couple beers in, and that's about it. But and I'm sure I'll be seeing you fairly soon on the trip home. What about yourself? What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be podcasting with our friend Casey later in the week. So
what's that about?
Then we're gonna talk some hockey, talk about some golf, the U.S. Opens this weekend. So we're gonna chat about that. I'm pissed off that they don't have DeChambeau and Koepka in the same group. I think they're missing a big opportunity with that. But
I didn't think you would like that. So you're a big fan of the Brooks and versus Bryson.
oh, I love
I
it.
think it's great for golf.
Oh, me too. I would have put them in a group with Patrick Reed. That's
I never thought. Yeah, well, Patty Reed would be he'd be an interesting one there. He'd probably stir the
those
flame.
two mashing it, and you got Patrick Reed kicking the ball and picking up a new one in the rough and fluffing it there. Like I think that would be just must see TV. But they had DeChambeau playing with some loser. Like he won the tournament last year, and he's playing with some nobody. But yeah, I'll be dialed into that this weekend for sure. Like you said, the conference finals, Vegas and the Canadien de Montréal tonight at 10 o'clock, and then a double action of NBA tonight as well. So a lot happening, and Wimbledon's in a couple weeks. The All England Club they didn't play it last year, so I'm excited to see that major again. So like a lot happening, and before you know it, it'll be NBA trade NBA free agency, NHL free agency. So always something on the go in the sports world. Olympics.
Yeah, the old Tokyo will be just around the corner. So
I've also been watching a little of the Euros. I'm as you know, I'm not a huge soccer guy. When we get to these World Cup and the Euro, like these big tournaments, I get invested. So I've been watching a little soccer too.
Okay, do you got any breakdowns or you got a hot take about that right now? From the little bit you watched.
First of all, I'm super happy that Christian Eriksen's alive, and that was a scary
situation. So
scary. Happy. Credit to the first responders who were there and saved his life. So kudos to them. But first of all, soccer players are soft. That is not just
what?
That is just a fact. Some of these guys should do Broadway shows because good God. But I got to give them credit. Their cardiovascular training is off the charts. I mean, these guys are running full tilt the whole time, and they do it for 90 minutes, most of them. So, I just their level of fitness is really impressive to me.
Yeah, they some of them might even rival you a little bit in the old walking stream. I think some of them might be up there in your level. Maybe, I don't know.
We'll see. Maybe Ronaldo or one of these guys. But no, it's a great tournament, and like I said, just Christian Eriksen, happy to see him doing okay, because that was scary to watch.
So cool to see the fan bases, both of them collide and kind of yell his name in support. I think they stopped the match right away, didn't they? But the fans stayed for quite a while.
Yeah, well, they ended up playing later that day, which I don't think was necessary. I think they could have played the next day, but nevertheless, the show goes on. Who do you got tonight, Vegas or Montreal, game 2?
Oof. I know my Habs fans they're not going to like me, but I think Vegas is going up 2-0. I think they figure out the formula. Just get people in front of Carey Price, and you can't. Most cliche thing I've ever heard. You can't stock pucks you can't see. So yeah, but that's the formula for beating them. So if they do that, I think so. I'd say I'm not riding them because I don't like them, but Ben Sherrod and Kotkaniemi both had awful game ones.
Sherrod played his worst game of the playoffs so far.
Yeah. So I hate how it's so late though. I'm me and you differ in this matter. I need my 8 hours. You probably stay up for the whole game and be fine and wake up better than me. Sometimes I get my 8 hours in and I roll over. I'm like, oh, I could use another couple.
Did you watch the whole Brooklyn-Milwaukee game last night?
Probably right till almost, I'd say probably 8 or 9 minutes left in the fourth. But then I was kind of like, oh, God, I'm tough.
You went to bed after that?
I'm tired. I get tired. I'm tired. I'm up early, up at 8 o'clock. 7 o'clock. So, yeah, no, but it was good, and what a choke job by Milwaukee. I know we talked about it in our preview, like how they need to come out this year, and I was like, I was rooting for them because I hate these villains of Kyrie Irving, and Griffin, that fucking sleaze bag. But anyways, no, I was like, you know what, Milwaukee, they got this. They're gonna go up 3-2. It's a wrap. And now they're on their face.
Kevin Durant just proving that he's the best player in the world last night.
Sharp shooter.
Yeah,
he's a snake though. But yeah, he's a damn good basketball player.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting to see what Milwaukee can bring back at home tomorrow night in Game 6. But a lot of good sports, like you said. A good pod tonight, Shay. And I know we'll see each other this weekend, but have a good rest of the 2 days of the weekend of the week. Sorry, and we'll touch base soon.
Thank you, buddy.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. As always, ton of fun. We'll be back next Tuesday at a regular time, and stay safe. And we'll talk soon.